Hi there, and welcome to part 3 of the series of 5 webinars produced by DrinkWise Agewell. This part of the series will let you hear from our experts by experience, and you'll get to hear them talk about what was important for them when it came to support from services around about their issues with alcohol. These webinars contain lots of learning from the DrinkWise Agewell programme and are split into the following 5 sections to enable you to watch and listen at your leisure. In part 1, why consider older adults and services? So this is an overview of the evidence and need for specific services for older adults. In part 2, what works in services for older adults? What did we learn about best practice? Part 3, the experience. Our experts by experience talk about what was important and what supported them. Part 4, women and alcohol. This is an open and honest discussion about alcohol and being a woman. Part 5, alcohol and ageing. So this was practical tips to think about alcohol in your life.
Hi, I'm Sarah from DrinkWise Agewell in Exeter, and I got a question for you guys. When did you first realise you needed help with your alcohol use?
Hi, I'm Pauline. Hi, Sarah. Well, I first, when I finally realised that I had an alcohol issue and I needed help was when I ended up in hospital 4 times in 3 months, and it was all alcohol related, 2 illnesses and 2 falls. I broke my 2 ankles. So when I came out of there, I contacted my GP, and that's where I got help from.
Mm. What about you, John Slater?
It crept up on me. I was a great tea time drinker. It's really nice to have a glass of wine when you're cooking tea.
Very true.
But I was also struggling a bit, really. I was caring for relatives and so on. So my life was getting quite restricted. And, you know, it helps you relax, doesn't it? A glass of wine. And then 1 became 2, became 3, became bottles. All this within the space of cooking tea. And then the next thing I knew, I was hiding bottles in the back of cupboards and goodness knows what. And then I was desperate to get down the supermarket, and I just thought, oh, okay, this has happened to me. Now I've got a problem.
Did you find, John, that you were eating later? That's what I used to find, because I was the same as you as well. As I used to have a drink before I was cooking tea, and then as the tea ended up getting later and later and later because the drink was more important.
Get more drinking.
It's funny now, but at the time it wasn't. No.
I was really quite desperate.
Yeah.
Actually, this is John Nelson, and I was a volunteer with DrinkWise Agewell in Sheffield for 4 years, and I'm also a recovering alcoholic. And with me, on the whole tea time thing, I did a lot of the cooking. Always have done a lot of cooking at home. I like cooking. I'm a good cook. And the thing is, though, is that I was looking forward. I wanted to start cooking earlier and earlier because it sort of gave me permission to start drinking. So I'd say to my then wife, you know, what time are we having tea tonight? When do you want to eat? And then I'd plan it backwards so I could know when I'd be able to start drinking. And you know, and that it was that. I mean, and at that stage, I think I was really. I mean, I wasn't actually drinking every day. I was just drinking quite heavily at weekends and sometimes maybe in the week, but often not. It was only after my wife died that I began to drink very, very heavily and dependently. And in answer to your original question, Sarah, when did I realise I needed help with alcohol use? Well, it was when it was pretty serious. I think when it got to the stage when I was drinking as soon as I got up in the morning and had to have a drink when I got in the morning. And it was very hard for me to not to have a day without alcohol. And in fact, when I did try to have days without alcohol, the withdrawal was terrifying, crippling, crucifying almost, and terrified me. And I realised that I could no longer do anything about it myself, and I had to have help.
Yeah,
I was very much like you, John. I had to have alcohol in the morning just to make a start on the day. And then, of course, once you stop, the withdrawal symptoms are terrible, so you just carry on.
It's just scary. Yeah, I just think it's so scary how something that's so easy to buy can just totally ruin the way you think about things in such a quick amount of time, it just jumps up on you. It's really quite.
It creeps up, yeah, I know.
Mm.
The other way I realized it was a problem was not just, you know, it wasn't just the amount I was starting to drink. It was the way it was changing my behavior, the way I was becoming really irritable, that I could burst into anger with. I'm just thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Why am I behaving like that? And it was really, really hard to control my behavior and stay with things. So it's getting really quite scary.
Get angry.
I think that's right. It's as you feel it's almost that your behaviour's gone out of control. You can no longer control what you're doing, and the drinking obviously becomes the withdrawal is so terrifying. The drinking becomes a necessity. Which is and it's fun. I think it's going back to what John said. It's interesting that you can move. I mean, the drinking I described when my wife was alive, when I was drinking, quite very heavily at weekends actually, and always wanting to start cooking because that's the excuse to start drinking. And but I was having days then. I was still having days when I did not drink alcohol. I'd have one terrifying experience. I'd have a horrifying experience on Mondays when I came down off my weekends alcohol, and I would deliberately at work only ever work between 10 and 4 on those days because that I could cope. But then I worked like mad for the rest of the week. No alcohol, but worked like mad. But I went from that period when I was actually a heavy drinker, probably on the verge of dependency, into dependency just in a period of a couple of years after that. After my wife died, it just happened so quickly, and I think that's true. It's frightening how it does happen so quickly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What about
with all that effect on you? The lovely thing was when I did eventually manage to get things together and under control, was my partner saying to me, "It's nice to have you back."
That's lovely. That's absolutely lovely, and that's brilliant. And yeah, that really is lovely. What about when you actually went and asked for help, everybody? What was it like when you first sought help? And Sarah, what was it like for you?
Gosh, it depends how far back you want to go. I did have a problem a long time ago, back 11 years ago, when I had an alcohol issue, and I was sober. Actually, I went into a rehab, and I was sober for 7 years, not knowing that. Well, I always used to say back then, when I start drinking again, and which was a weird thing to say, but it was like I was waiting for an excuse. An extremely, a really big, scary thing happened, family thing happened, and I went straight to the fridge and started drinking again. It took a matter of days before I was drinking bottles of wine and vodka, and I tried to get some help from my doctor, and my doctor turned around and said, all that time the NHS money you spent of the NHS, and this has happened. I then referred myself back to our local alcohol and drug service, eventually got through the door with loads of people a lot younger than me. Literally I nearly turned around before I even got in there. It's people on the doorstep, people not that I've got, just doing things that I wouldn't normally do, a lot younger, and eventually got in there, sat down, and there was lots of younger people sat around, and I went in and I was told I wasn't drinking enough, which was the wrong thing to say, because I then turned around and went straight to Waitrose and carried on drinking until I could get the right support, which think about now, I mean, I still would struggle of what to do with issues with drinking, apart from luckily I found Drinkwise Age Well for help for the over 50s, which has helped me tremendously. I am now sober again.
That's brilliant. So that's interesting, because what you the experience for you is that not helpful advice, but also maybe not maybe there was an age-related context there, Sarah, that you wanted to help amongst your own peers, and that would have helped. Maybe once you found that help, things were better. What do other people think about that? But help amongst your own peers, how that works?
Oh, the peer support is really, really important, John, I think. Even if it's once a week, once a month, it's just so helpful to speak to other people that have been in your, in the same shoes as yourself. When I first went to my GP as well, when I needed help, and it was him that said to me, you're drinking too much. I said, I know, and he referred me to a community addiction team. And I've got to say, 2 people came out to my house and they were not nice at all. It wasn't a very good experience, but I'm not saying that was happening to everybody. It was just that they came in and it was as if, why are we even here? You've got a nice, clean, tidy house. You've took retirement. You've got a few bob. Why would somebody like you have a problem with alcohol? It was as if we're wasting our time here. It didn't go very well, but anyway, but luckily they then allocated me a CAT worker, a community addiction team worker, and she was absolutely wonderful. I don't know what I would have done without her. She got me onto community rehab, addiction, and that's how I stopped drinking. And from then, I then became a volunteer with DWAW as well, which helped tremendously as well, because it was a void I had. You just got up in the morning, my daughter went to school, and there was nothing else to do. And that's how my drink started. But is that my first experience was the GP was lovely. The first 2 visits for social work were not nice at all. But my CAT worker, she just basically get the ball rolling, got me into addiction, through all that for a 1.5 years, and then joined DWAW, and then became an employee of DWAW. So that has helped tremendously, but I still like peer support.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And John, what about you?
Well, yeah, I guess the same for me, John. The the group work and so on was really important, meeting other people with those issues, and something I'd never had before. I mean, you're quite alone with it, aren't you, really? And there I was thinking, oh my God, and what people are going to make of me, and I had all these things going through my head. What am I doing to myself? I've got all these pains. Am I going to get cancer? Am I going to get liver cirrhosis? How do I deal with this, and not knowing where to go with it? And I suppose I started where a lot of people would start. You go to your GP, but I didn't feel that great about that. And I think, sitting in the waiting room, all sorts was going through my head. I felt quite ashamed, really. And I really quite minimized it and put it in at the end of the consult. And the reaction was, oh, well, we'll give you a blood test. And then the blood test came back all right. And he didn't really say much about it. And you thought, oh, I got away with it then for now. But then it all comes back again. But I mean, the way I did get to the help was actually online. I just, like you search, trying to find out support. How do I deal with this? Endlessly going around, and I found DWAW Age Well on there, and that's very anxious. And the wonderful thing was, I felt really anxious about ringing, and I just got such a welcome and support, and I didn't feel like a case. I didn't feel like this person with a problem. I just felt like a human.
That's important, John. You've got something to say, I think, or a question for us about what works. I mean, and from what I'm hearing from you guys is that we're all in recovery, which is brilliant now. Is that something particular worked for us this time? What do you think? What have you got to say on that, John?
Yeah, what did work this time, isn't it? What was different? So I guess that's leading up. That was the first thing. I felt welcome. Somebody was probably assessing me, but I didn't feel like somebody was assessing me. I felt like somebody was having a talk with me and understanding me and working things. And then I think that gave me the confidence. It's so easy, isn't it? You come out of your little burrow and you try and deal with it, and you can so easily scurry back again, finding it too hard or too difficult. But that kept me there, that response, that welcome, that making me feel it was all right. And then that kept me going for a week. And then I met with the person who was going to work with me, Carrie, and we met. The lovely thing was we met in a really nice place. We just met in a community centre with a cafe, and then they had a room where we could talk. And I think what was lovely is we just started to talk, and we tried to get some understanding around it, what was going on for me, making me feel safe. Nobody labelled it. nobody talked to me about being an alcoholic or anything. It was just quite a big issue for me. I thought, oh, am I an alcoholic? You know, how do I deal with this? And just gradually building up the trust, which was really critical with me, getting a really good relationship, and just experimenting, trying things out, trying to understand what was going on, you know, putting some facts in there, but also just trying things. Can I cut down? Will this work? Will that work? And I think the great thing was that trauma was allowed in the room. So, you know, my whole underlying issue around this was my childhood trauma. And it was so nice to actually find somewhere. They didn't have to process it or work, but it could be there. It was allowed to be there. And that really helped me get to grips and work on it. And then we went into groups, and that really helped, talking with other people, even practical ways, like, you know, what a good zero alcohol and things like that, as well as the deeper issues and the difficulties around it. So that was really supportive. And we did some social activities as well, which they asked about. So a number of us were keen on art, and we actually started doing an art exhibition and that building that self-confidence back up again. And I think the same again, you know, with you know, eventually I ended up doing volunteering, and then thinking about this in terms of why isn't this being dealt with, and it becoming more of an issue of having a voice and wanting to do things. And that's what led to me doing the legacy support and my interest around trauma and alcohol, and trying to look for improvements in that. So I guess in the end I felt like part of the solution instead of just endlessly feeling like I was a
and isn't that important? But the thing with me, when I was, I didn't have treatment with Drinkwise Age Well. I volunteered with them, but when I did have treatment, I had a very, very traumatic and bereavement, very horrifying experience. And I always found that I wasn't, my alcoholism and my the trauma from this very sudden, terrifying, horrifying thing that happened was not being addressed as a whole. And when it was eventually addressed as a whole, that was so important, treating the whole person. I wonder if any of the, you know, Pauline and Sarah, you've had similar experiences when you found that you were being that things were no longer compartmentalized, and that you were seen as a whole person. That seems to be the big message that you're putting through.
Oh yeah, very, very much so. I mean, but when I joined Drinkwise Age Well as a volunteer, I had been sober for 18 months. So I had already been to community rehab. But the very first day you started, you're a volunteer, but you're told you're also a member of staff. You're invited to all their meetings, no secrets. You were just treated like a member of staff. You weren't somebody who used to have an alcohol issue who's now volunteering with the group. You joined in with everything, or the groups, or the training, just even going for lunch, anything. You were part of this big team, and it just, for me, it was filling a huge void. And that's what helped me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I didn't realise, but I found really important I thought alcohol was my friend.
Yeah.
And part of me really loved this friend, and part of me really hated this friend. And I thought this friend was giving me confidence and making me do all these different things, always remembering the good things, not the bad things that happen after a few drinks. And to give up that friend, was really, really scary. I knew I had to part with this drink. I knew I had to give up. But it was really hard. And to go into a place like I'd gone before and said, look, and turned away, was really, really upset me. But when I finally went to see somebody from Drinkwise Age Well, I gained a new friend, so I could eventually get rid of the alcohol, because like you guys said, it actually makes you realise that people do understand that you've got problems, whether it's alcoholic or mental health. The two sort of they do go together, and I needed help with both, to be honest. But having somebody who was listen, and that's all you need, somebody that can listen. It just means so much to me. And that's what I got from Drink Wise Age Well. And like you, I started volunteering, and I've all of a sudden I felt so much better about myself.
Yeah.
It was a drink that was hiding so many things, and it never was my friend. Never was my friend. No, but
What mattered to me was that it's, you know, drinking was my way of coping. That's how I got by, and I thought, oh, this is, you know, works, and then it didn't, big time. But you know, so out of that, what was important was, you know, for me at Drink Wise Age Well, this wasn't about me giving up alcohol. This was me finding other ways of enjoying my life, of finding fulfillment, of being able to be with myself, if you like, because that was a big part of it. It's not being with myself.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
that's what made it.
Yeah,
the way they worked around that.
Yeah, the one thing that I think we've all got in common is that we're all over 50. None of us are getting any younger, but we're looking absolutely damn fine, I have to say. Over 50, we're a fine, fine bunch of people, a good advert for what we've been doing. I don't know, Pauline, you got any thoughts about people over 50 who want to seek help?
Well, yeah, just go. My initial reaction would be talk to your GP, but because mine was so helpful. But I know a lot of people have issues with that. You know, they've maybe had a GP for like 30 years and they don't want you suddenly say to them, look, I've got an issue with alcohol. That it was my GP that said to me that I had an issue with alcohol. But there's, you know, but even if you don't, you go online, there's go find addiction services in your area. If you don't want to meet somebody, there's helplines, just phone first. You can have a few phone calls with people before they'll even suggest if you want to meet up. I would, you know, I never thought there was help for over 50s. Never crossed my mind there was help for older people with alcohol issues when it became an issue for me. Never, it was like you drink or you don't drink. I had no idea there was any services out there, and there is so many services out there that are help, and you don't need to think about stigma or shame. You're treated as an individual.
Yeah, and I thought you had a career in drinking. You basically drank up until your late 40s, early 50s, and you either then gave up or you died. That was how I always thought it was. What I didn't, it's only when I got involved with Drink Wise Age Well, I realised there were people who started drinking for various reasons in their 50s when they're older. And I think the main message I've got for people who find themselves in that position is that, and that's exactly as you say, Pauline, there is help out there. But the other thing that's so important is to have people, I think, who've been through an experience, had the lived experience that we've got, who can ask as role models. Even if everyone talks about role models for younger people, but I think even older people need role models sometimes. And that if you can show by experience that it is possible to change, and that's my message, change is possible.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was.
I didn't think it was. No. I just think that, like you said, you know, we are older, but we deserve to be able to get over the alcohol problems and our mental health problems. And, you know, what can I say? It's that I don't know what to say, to be honest. I think we all deserve someone or somewhere. I mean, I know Drink Wise Age Well have got a helpline number. I haven't got the number on me at the moment, but I know they have, and it's people like that people like that can help when you get to the age of 50 or struggling, that at least you know you're going to talk to somebody or talk to people with lived experience that can help. So
and that's
with
respect and human kindness.
Yeah,
absolutely. And well said, everybody. And I hope that anybody listening to this webinar will take some heart and encouragement from what we've had to say today. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to part 3 of our webinar. Please move on to part 4 to hear more about healthy ageing and alcohol. You can also find out more information from our website, which is www.drinkwiseagewell.org.uk, including details of our alcohol helpline for older adults. This helpline is for anyone over 50 who's looking for free and confidential support around about their alcohol use. If you would like to check if your service is doing the best it can for older adults who are drinking, then please take a look at our AIMS, which is our Age Inclusive Model Service Toolkit, which walks you through ensuring your service and support is accessible for all ages and stages in life. It contains lots of tips and helpful information and allows you to rate your own service against checklists and standards that have been created in co-production with older adults.